Welcome, Illumineers. It is time to take a rest from your quest and check in to the Lore Keeper's Inn. I'm your host, Katie. Now, here at the Inn, we encourage guests to take advantage of our extensive DVD and VHS library. However, we can't spend all our budget on the fancy pants theatrical releases, so instead we've curated the next best thing, which are direct-to-videos, prequels, and sequels. To make the most of our collection, I am having a series where we have movie night at the Inn. And each episode, myself and a guest will discuss the plot of one of 29 prequels and sequels that never quite made it to theaters. We'll tell you the plot. We're going to discuss what we like, discuss what we might not like. Say, was it good? As good, better, worse than the original? And lastly, does it have to be, or is there room for it to be incorporated into Disney Lorcana? And then to close out, we'll put the movie back on the shelf and we'll say, where does it belong on the tier list relative to its peers? Now, today we are diving into the 2004 sequel, Mulan II. And with me is someone who I assume is the Mulan 2's biggest fan because she picked it herself. So I assume that's what we're getting into. When she's not hosting her show Live Laugh Lorcana with her sister Becky, you can find her crushing competition at Flesh and Blood and Lorcana. She is the one and only Katie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I did feel weird typing the one and only Katie as a Katie because it's like, well, the one and only other Katie, because, I think
Not even the only Katie on this podcast right now, so.
it's true. It is. I think any Katie born between the year 1985 to like 1995 can relate to. There's just a lot of us running around. It's a tight space, a lot of competition.
Yeah, every class it's like 3 Katies.
Yeah, you get a pick. They're like, all right, which one do you want to be? So that's fun. It's fun to have a name where you have to Highlander through your whole life. But thank you for coming on. Like we mentioned earlier, or I mentioned that we're doing Mulan 2. So this came out in 2004, which I didn't look up. The original came out, I feel like in 98, maybe. I don't know. I just feel like it feels like a 1998 film. Or I'm not sure when, but there's time between it. But it's an interesting movie because I was a big fan of Mulan 1, but I don't think I saw Mulan 2. And if I did, something happened to protect my brain where I don't remember what I saw. But I'm going to say I never saw it. The majority of the voice cast returned, with the most apparent change being Mushu, which right away you're like, something's amiss here. But a couple fun facts before we dive into the discussion. I did learn that, so my favorite character, it's not my favorite character because that'd be weird, but my favorite side character was Little Brother because I was like, that's a very cute little dog.
Yes.
And he's very rare. He's mysterious. He only comes onto screen once, I think, in the first movie, maybe at the end. So he was voiced by Chris Sanders, who voiced Stitch in the first movie, which is kind of crazy that they're like, we got to get an A-lister to do this dog. Not a real dog, a man. But he did not come back from Mulan 2. He said, I simply cannot. And then the last thing is they injected some star power. They had Lucy Liu and Sandra Oh are in this movie as the sisters.
Yeah, those are big names.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they were just like, I'm not really up to anything right now. And then also Olympian Michelle Kwan does a voice. I saw that. It's just Shopkeep. I don't know whose shop, but apparently they phoned in Michelle Kwan and said, hey, would you like to be in Mulan 2? And she said, yes. Of course. Who would say no?
Right. I
so
did
happy
read on IMDb that Eddie Murphy had a conflict with Shrek 2. It wasn't that he refused to be in it, it didn't work out, but
it's weird because Shrek comes up so much when I research movies. Shrek is just really a driving force. You're on the side of Shrek or you're against Shrek, and this was one that was hurt by Shrek. Yeah, and it makes sense. But I do like that they're like, well, you have to do your best Eddie Murphy impression, and props for this person because that'd be a very stressful job to do. Have you seen this movie before this week?
I know I have. You said I picked this because I'm a Mulan 2 super fan. That is not true.
Okay.
I am a Mulan 1 super fan. It was actually a huge mistake for me to pick this movie because I think I love Mulan a little too much. So I think I'm going to be overly harsh on this probably. But I think the original is just so good. It's so funny. Like it's just it has this also beautiful moral about how we judge women in society, and I adore the first one. So I just wanted to give the second one like, a chance.
Yeah, yeah, because you would think, and as I thought, because I remember hearing about it and being like, "Oh, yeah, Mulan II," and I think, like, through thinking about this series, something must have happened where my family was actively trying to protect me from these movies because, like, I don't they didn't enter our house. They weren't on the Blockbuster list. I guess in 2004, I was entering high school, so maybe that's also I wasn't like, "I gotta say Mulan II, guys." So maybe that's why, but I will say I'm glad. I was afraid. I like, last as I was getting ready today, I was like, "What if she's like, this is actually my favorite movie?" And I think Mulan 1, you can skip it. Start with 1 too. Because spoiler alert, it's fundamentally a very different movie than the first movie. In quite literally every way, it can be different. Um, so I thought we could start with the plot, for people at home, people, everyone's seen it, but people wanna probably remember what's it about. I would say the too long didn't read is that it is about actually marriage is most important. I think that's, like, the most overarching theme of the movie is it's, like, people, they're like, "We gotta find husbands. I have husband." It's very marriage forward. Um, and it's a kids movie that talks about arranged marriage, which is right off the bat an interesting topic.
It's a
Um,
fair choice. When they sat down and they were like, "Well, what can children relate to with
I
this?"
know, they're like, "Mhm, that's," which then well, I don't wanna spoil it, but then there's a whole song about how they're like, "Actually, this isn't," so it starts with Mushu being not Eddie Murphy. He comes in, he's doing, like, an Emperor's New Groove kinda moment. He's having a great time. Only a month has passed. I read that on Wikipedia. I don't know if they explicitly say it, but quite only a month has passed. And Mushu is still not loved by the ancestors. We still don't get to see any of the other dragons. That's just not something we're gonna be able to do in this series. But they don't like him, especially. And they're like, "Where's Mulan?" And this is when I knew things were gonna be kinda bad because they said, "Well, Mulan, she's out in the field with the children." And I'm like, "Uh-oh." So that was red flag number 1. And how would you describe what is she doing? What is she hanging out in the field up to?
She is, as far as I can tell, giving free babysitting to these community children. I don't
She
know. She just
and
they've
warrior
all come
training.
to her during the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was good. She's doing community-based learning, but she sings a song about, you gotta be strong and gentle, and then they sing a lot of juxtaposition. They're like, "Day, night," and I'm like, "That's fun." And then they're like, "But General Li Shang," so he's general. They make sure to say, like, Mulan's just hanging out. He's a general, so not much. Later, we find out she is esteemed. She's like they still think she's really cool, but she's definitely not in the military. She did not get to be. Times change, but not that much, unfortunately.
Wait, can I
Um,
share this note of yours? Because you have
yes.
notes at the bottom of
Yes.
the sheet, and it made me laugh out loud. Your single note is Li Shang is a general, and Mulan is dot 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 hanging out with kids in a field.
Yeah. That's when I was like, "I'm done." That's when I took my hand off the keyboard. I was like, "I think I got it for me." I thought it would be like a sequel in the sense it's like, "Oh, and here's, the next step," and, no. And Li Shang, he immediately proposes. It's been a month, and he comes and proposes. All the kids are like, "That's a nice looking guy," so that's fun. It's always fun when children are flirting. I don't know, so they're very excited about getting married. I'm not sure if this is right after, but we find out the big 3, we got Yao, Ling, and Xingpo. They wanna get married too, because that's so they go to the matchmaker, who apparently is voiced by somebody else too. Whoever did the voice in the first movie, she's like, "I'm not coming back." And then they say, "You're unmarriable." So, this is important, asterisk. Arranged marriage is very much a thing. That's the whole point of a matchmaker. I think this is important to bring up because later, they make it sound like this is not a big deal. So, they're trying to find wives. They sing A Girl Worth Fighting For, but a worse version, I would say. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it is, at least a throwback to the original.
it was, and I love a reprise. So, I thought that
Yeah.
was, I mean, honestly, that was the only song I remember. So, that actually, well, no, there's another song that I remember, but I think it was fun because I was like, "Oh, I remember that." And if you remember, in the first movie, it's like the last time the movie's fun before they're like, "War," and then you see, like, a devastated. So yeah, that song is always a fun soft spot because it's like such a happy moment, and then immediately it's the terrors of war, which is, not something you get in a kids movie very often. Um, but they want to get married. Uh, so the emperor calls upon Li Shang and Mulan and says, "You two are my number one and number two. I need you to do something. Please come." And they do. And he's like, "I have 3 daughters." He looks like he's well into his 70s, but he has 3 daughters and they're unmarried. So, um, they talk about the Mongols, which is different because the last time it was Huns, and now they're like, "We're worried about the Mongols. It's all Mongols now," which I'm not sure makes sense time period wise.
Yeah, a month later, it's like we have a different enemy. Okay.
And he's like, "The only way we can solve this is by marrying off all 3 of my daughters. That's just the way it's gotta be, and we gotta get them there, and I need you 2 to do it, and you can have whatever resources." And they said, "We don't need an army. I got the big 3." They're not called the big 3, but I think that's easier than naming them. So they get the big 3 and they say, "We have to do this mission." Um, and then from there, at this point, I think we're 30 to 40 minutes into the movie. I would say at this point, the bad guy is Mushu in this movie,
Yes.
which is
It's
shocking.
not close. Like
He
it's Mushu.
Yeah, they say like, "Oh, Chinese ancestor law, if Mulan marries Li Shang, then she's now in that family, and, you don't get to have dragon privileges, like, the dragon privileges are not there's, like, dragon law." So Mushu's like, "I'm gonna break up this marriage." So he, throughout the entire movie, does so much mischief that several people die several times, almost die several times, like, he's very villainous. Um so, I will say I think I have a theory, and we can maybe come to that later, that this movie might be why Mushu doesn't have a card in Lorcana. Like, somebody might have seen this movie and was like, "No, I don't think he deserves a card after that." But that's my new theory.
You know,
Um,
that's totally fair because, like, he causes most of the trouble in this movie.
yeah, and that's it. He's the bad guy. There's no other foil. At one point, there's, like, a gang that they're like, "Oh, bad guys," and that's, like, briefly a problem, but it's mostly a problem because of Mushu. So they're traveling, they have places to be, it's just the 3 girls, the 3 guys, Mushu, Cricky. Cricky's there, he's fine. He's a stable character, I have no complaint. Um, and they, you find the 3 and 3, they fall in love. That's I mean, the short version is they fall in love because they're perfectly matched. There's one girl that really likes Yao because he's short and looks like a panda, which I feel is, you know the shorter the list in life for your, like, partner, I think the happier you'll be, and she's like, "That checks the boxes." Um, Another girl likes food, and Chenpo's like, "Me too." And the last one's like, "Oh, I don't laugh," and Ling's like, "I'm gonna say the worst jokes possible at you," but then eventually that pays off too. Um, do
Yes.
you y yeah, what are your thoughts on all that, this romance?
It's crazy. Well, it's just one of those funny things that's like so silly because it's like 3 girls and 3 guys. So of course they're like, of course
Mhm.
statistically we're all gonna end up in love. It's just funny because like so much of it is like them being like scandalized by arranged marriages and being like, oh, arranged marriages are terrible, but love at first sight in one day, totally cool. You should marry
Mhm.
that person.
Yes. Arranged through fate, but quickly. Yeah, because I mean, they're, like, in it to win it. Like, they're not just like, "I think he's cute, and this makes me wonder if maybe I shouldn't be getting married." They're like, "No, actually, I think that guy is my dream." Um, and then so this is, I think, the crux this isn't the climax of the movie, but it's the climax of when I was like, "What is going on?" The 3 sisters sing a song about wanting to be like other girls, which is fascinating because the first movie, they sing a song about the matchmaker where every girl is stressed out about getting in an arranged marriage. They are, like, busting their hump to get a husband. And so they sing this song about they're like, "No, I wanna be like other girls who have a lot of fun." And I'm like,
Who climb trees and
"Yes.
scrape their knees. This is what they do.
Yes, this is the female experience is, yeah, they fly a little bit for a while in the montage, they fly around. Um, so that troubling. It was a troubling song just because it was fine, it's just I think they should talk to Mulan about it 'cause she's like, "No, it was arranged marriage or go to war. Those are the only 2 options for my girlhood." Um, Actually, no, she couldn't have arranged marriage, so it was just be a spinster, I think, was Mulan's fate, because they were like, "I'm so sorry. You're unmarriable."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then there's a subplot of so Mushu's trying to make Mulan and Li Shang not get along, and it's working swimmingly because we find out that Li Shang is neurotic. We find out that he is not well, he's very high strung and will immediately, like, be very quick to fire, which is, like, not like we don't know him that well. We don't know him that well from the first movie. We just know he's stressed and he's got a lot on his plate most of the time. And in his defense, I'm pretty sure, like, they could be like, I don't know, they could probably be, like, executed for aborting this failing this mission, like, if he, like, said, "Oh, yeah, no, sorry, your 3 daughters married these 3 random guys we were with," like, he should be stressed a little bit, so I don't wanna
Yeah.
be too mean to him.
I mean, it's like the safety of China rests on his,
Yes.
head, so he's a little
Again.
stressed.
Yeah, like, a month ago, it was on his shoulder, and now it's again, and it's not even that hard, and it's still going terribly. So Mulan and Li Shang are like, "You know what? Maybe shouldn't we don't know each other that well," because Mushu tricks him into thinking that she was trash talking him. He does, like, one of his little puppet shows. He's like, "Remember that?" And he does a little puppet show, and he's like, "I believe that this all checks out."
Well, to be fair, we are fed hints at the beginning that Mulan and Li Shang are not well matched because when they're talking to people at their engagement party, they're like, "Oh, I want, I don't know, this for my life," and they had like completely different answers on everything. Um,
Yeah. But nope, they still have to end up together, sorry, unfortunately.
yeah.
So, it's not about how it could be, but it's not, unfortunately, it is they fight, spoiler alert, they don't, and they still love each other. So Mushu's causing mischief, and then the big 3 and the little 3, the guy 3 and girl 3, they're like, "We should go run away to the nearest village," and they know where the nearest village is, and they're having a party because that's what local villages are known for is their nightly celebrations. And they have the time of their life. They love it. It turns out that Sandra Oh, she does like to laugh. She just doesn't because she snorts when she laughs. And so that was the only thing holding her back, and now they're in love. So all 3 of them, all 3 couples are power couples. Mulan finds them and she's like, "I'm so happy for you guys. This is perfect, perfect, perfect." Um, but it's not
So
perfect.
this is like they all sneak out for a group date, and
Yeah.
it's the best thing that happened to all of us. So
Yeah, they're right next to a village having a festival. They have money on them, I guess. I don't know how logistics work in this time in China, which I'm not sure is a time that exists because I don't think there was a time where the Mongol Empire and the Huns were both at their I mean, they're not we don't know that they're at their peak. It could just be like the Huns are 10 guys at this time. We don't know. We don't know that information. Li Sheng is flying off the handle. He's like, "Everybody, I swear to God, if anyone talks to anyone for the rest of this trip, I'm going to lose it." He's at the edge. And then they get attacked by guys. You know they're evil because they are drawn gray, which is canonically in Mulan world. If you are gray, you are a bad person. I have found that
good
is
point.
a
I didn't notice that.
yeah.
Yes.
All grayish tinged people, they're like, "Mm-mm, that's not good." So they cause some mischief, and Li Shang dies, and that's very sad. And Mulan says
Allegedly.
yeah, he falls, as we know, falling you have then if you fall for a long distance, you're probably okay. That's not a death sentence in a Disney movie or any movie really.
I will
Um,
say this is one of the more exciting scenes
it
of the
was.
movie. We have like a big fight action sequence. It's like it looks like Mulan and Li Shang are both gonna fall, but then
Yeah.
um and Mulan's holding on to Li Shang and he lets go to save her.
Yeah, he does. I mean, it's quite literally the scene in, Avengers where he's like, "No, you have to let go," and then, like, he lets go, and she's like, "No!" And from there, Mulan's, like, very serious. So then the movie, like, kinda picks up because she's like, "I'm gonna make choices now. This isn't a love story. I'm gonna save China's story." And I'm like, "Okay." And how is she gonna save China? Marriage. That's so we meet the kingdom that they're going to, which is, like, basically, I think, northern probably, or southern, the opposite direction of where they were in the first movie. And she says, "Hey, instead of marrying 3 girls, why not 1 me?" And they have a scene with abacuses and charts, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's a good idea." And so,
I
yeah,
didn't follow that entirely how marrying a princess was the same, but yes.
well, because they said she's so cool right now.
All
They're like,
right.
she's really, like she did some stuff, and we liked it. She didn't get to be in the military, and she still has to be married, and she still the daycare for the village, but she's the coolest of those people.
True. She has the most followers, so
Right. She's very hot on social media. So she agrees to marry a dorky kid, which I'm like, because yeah, because Mulan I think is like canonically probably 18, 20 at the oldest. She can't be older than 20. And the husband is revealed, and he goes, "Oh, she's so old," and I'm like, "We didn't have to make that joke, but you did it, and now I want to know what's happening." But no further questions. She's gonna marry him. And Li Shang rises from the river with other horse. The horse Khan, is that the name of the? Do you do you happen to
that's
know the name?
right.
Because I always thought Li Shang's horse was the black horse, but it turns out that's Mulan's horse, which kind of makes sense actually now that I think about it. That does make sense because I remember Mushu was bullying that horse quite a bit.
In the
But
first
yeah, in the first one, but this time we have a new horse. That horse finds Li Shang, pulls him out of a river, and then he meets up with the male 3 and female 3, and they say, "Well, Mulan went away, and we don't know what she's gonna do." She's like, "I do. She's gonna marry somebody." Um, so yeah, then we get to the finale. It's the wedding, and who saves the day? The villain. How, how did you feel about the? How did you feel about the resolution of the movie? I don't wanna give anything away, but, I mean, were you satisfied with how the last 10 minutes
the
kinda
last
rolled?
okay, so so it was weird because I just felt like we had set up this whole thing about like, oh, China's in trouble and you're gonna save it through marriage, and that just kind of disappeared.
Yes. Yeah, because Mushu, at this point, says, "I'm gonna do the puppet thing again, or I'm gonna pretend to be a dragon." He's doing a, "I'm just gonna do Mulan 1," and so he pretends to be the Great Love Dragon, which I don't think that's his name. It's like
The
the
Dragon
dragon.
of Unity or
Yes,
something.
yeah, and so the Dragon of Unity says, "By the way, Mulan can't marry that guy. He has to marry Li Shang, and I'm a deity." And everyone goes, "Damn, that checks out." And he's like, "And they gotta get married right now." So guess what? It's a surprise wedding. They get married. Um, I don't know what happens after that. I feel like I'm blanking out. Does anything happen after they get married? Do they go anywhere? Does the credits roll? Because I feel like that's when I blanked out.
They go back to Mulan's house and
Oh,
Mulan's ancestors, and Li Shang combines their ancestors, so
yeah.
then Mulan gets or Mushu gets to keep his job. Is that a
Yeah.
spoiler? Should I not have spoiled?
No, I just like that I completely blanked that. The minute you said, I'm like, "Yes, this did happen." And yeah, they're like, "Oh, dragon law, it's fine now." And so Mushu's like, "Oh, thank God." And yeah, and Mulan says, "Are we allowed to do this?" And he says, "I'm breaking the rules." And then notably, True to Your Heart by LFO or 98 Degrees does not start playing. The movie just ends. Um, if that song's not playing, then is the movie over? But it is. And I don't think they tell things they don't answer is what are they gonna do? Like, I mean, they literally that was the one treaty. The emperor's like, "You have no idea how important this is." You
I
get
don't
the
know what we do
impression
about the Mongols anymore. I don't know.
no, that's not important. Mulan 3 doesn't happen. Spoiler alert, there is no Mulan 3. There was going to be one. I have a theory they read the script and they're like, "It's better if we don't do that." I think this is probably we can leave it here. Um, so yeah, we've said some things that we're concerned about. Were there things about this movie you did like? Or not?
Um, yeah, so I actually read a bunch of reviews on this. And one thing I did read was I like don't have enough of the sequels in my head, but apparently the animation in this one is actually much better than most of the direct to video sequels. So I
That's a
thought
good
that
point.
was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that is a really good point, like, it did visually there wasn't any times where, yeah, that I didn't notice the animation, which is good, that's good when you don't notice it, and you can tell, I think they thought I mean, when you look at the cast, they got Lucy Liu, she was doing Charlie's Angels around this time, she was not this isn't like retired Lucy Liu, so I think they thought something good was gonna happen with this movie. My positive would be it was cool we got to see little brother again, that was kinda fun. Um,
That was fun.
I was like, "Ah, look at him go." I even got, like, a little Beanie Baby. It wasn't a Beanie Baby, it was just, like, a beanbag plush from the Disney store. I was like, "It's little brother," and, like,
I have
even at
never
that
been
age
more jealous of a plush. Oh my gosh.
I don't know where it is. That's the worst part of getting older. I just like, who knows? All my childhood toys gone. It's probably in Goodwill somewhere. But it was even then I would be like, oh, this is a niche character, and I felt like I had to pick like a niche character, and that was mine. So that's my positive. What are your concerns about this film? We've been over a few of them, but if you had to kind of sum it up,
Yeah, so probably the plot.
yeah, that's a big concern.
It's a
Hmm.
big concern. Now, I mean, it like I was thinking, I was trying to separate myself from my attachment to like the franchise and like, because I think we can agree it's not a spiritual sequel. Like, it doesn't have the same vibe at all. Like, it's like a real like war in the
Yeah,
first one. There's like a big action sequence and like actually getting stuff done. Um, but like even just trying to like set that aside, like they just kind of dropped the plot off at the end.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah. They're pretty much like, yeah. That's why it's hard because like Mulan, the first one, romance was like a subplot. Like it was kind of like, if anything, it was just Li Shang was really impressed with Mulan to the point where he's like, well, now that I know you're a girl, I love you. And so that was fun that he's like, oh, thank God, now I can say I love you. So like love was like part of it, but it was more about admiration, respect. And this one was like, no, the whole plot is marriage. Like I don't think any of the plot could exist without marriage being part of it. Um, so that was shocking. Um, and the first one is so good because it's got so much, like, you're into it from the beginning, like, I mean, you got nonstop good songs. I think it's very interesting that these sequels this is the second one, where they're like, "Well, the first one was a musical, so I guess this one's a musical." And they're like, "But what we'll just, like, write a couple songs, and one of them's a repeat." You didn't need to do that. Maybe it would've been better if you didn't, maybe. That's a hot take, but, because, like, the Mulan songs the Mulan songs, Mulan 1 Mulan the First had I mean, unforgettable songs. People are still singing them to this day, but this movie didn't need them so much. And it also made the Emperor a little bit more confusing. Everything became more confusing. Everything that I thought from the first movie just became a little bit more confusing as a viewer. Um, I posited a question to Becky last week or the weeks that I talked to her, like, is there a chance that we're gonna watch one of these movies and we'll be like, oh, this movie stands alone? Like, you could watch this movie and be like, oh, these characters, I get them. I like this movie. Maybe I don't understand everything, but I like it. I would say this one's a no, probably.
I don't
Uh,
know. I actually think I would maybe not dislike it as much as the standouts.
that's a good point, right? Because I mean, if you didn't know who Mulan was, if you just thought she was like a girl that people liked, and you didn't know that they just went through a very harrowing time. I mean, Li Shang's dad died. Like they had a really rough couple weeks, you would call that. Um, so yeah, maybe it would be better because you'd be like, this is just a bad movie about like seven brides for seven brothers or whatever. Like it's just a well, we got guys, we got girls, we got marriage kind of movie. Um, but I think the greatest betrayal of all was Mushu. I really think they did a whatever Mushu did in the first movie, we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna do it worse, and we're gonna do it for I mean, Mushu was selfish in the first movie. I will say I did think about that last night. He was doing everything just for his own benefit last time.
That's
Um,
true. But like, I mean, that's common because with these like comic relief characters, but like he has the story where he grows up and is like really trying to help,
yeah,
Mulan at the end.
that's true, right? Because like I think when Li Shang's like, I'm not gonna kill you, but I'm gonna leave you in the snowfield. Mushu's like, okay. Like that's when he has like a character arc of we do need to save China and help Mulan. Um, this no, he was bad. He was really mean the whole movie. Not
Yeah.
helpful. A little murderous. A little. Yeah, bad. He was just being not nice. Li Shang was so high strung. I really wanted to give that guy like he needs some time off. They need to give that guy a break. He's been through it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard being a general. He needs a break.
yeah, and he literally just got back from war. Um, so yeah, I think the sisters, I didn't have any problems with the characters. I think that's like the good news is like I didn't have any beef. Like in any other situation, the 3 guys, 3 girls, it wasn't the most egregious example of 3 guys, 3 girls. It was cute. It's fine. It was just in the backdrop, the stakes seemed so high that this I'm like, "Guys, are we gonna acknowledge how high the stakes are and how not high anybody is taking the stakes?" And the answer is no, they're not going to acknowledge that. So, unfortunately. And even at the end of the movie, they do not acknowledge it. They don't. I think it'd be fun to end with the Emperor and be like, "So now what are we gonna do?" And then that'd be better than ending with, "We just combined our temples and it's really nice." Li Shang had a really nice hat. That was fun. Um, so it comes back to Lorcana. Are there any characters or songs or any elements that you're like, "Yes, I think it's worth it to bring this into the world of Lorcana?"
Okay, so the first one I thought of, I mean, I'd be fine, to be honest, if we just pretended this didn't exist.
Yeah.
But if we want to put something in Lorcana, I actually thought of like the yin yang necklaces that the parents
Mhm.
give Mulan and Li Shang. Just have that
Yeah.
as an item.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Something kinda it'd be nice if it could be like it balances the other person's deck, so it balances no discard or something. That'd be
Ooh, I like that.
I know, right? Like, it balances something you don't like.
Or like when you have to discard, your opponent has to discard too or
Yeah,
something.
harmony and all.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, maybe want another Cricky card. I'm like, you know what, Cricky, he does a lot for a little guy. Um, I will say, like I mentioned earlier, it's funny that there's no Mushu, just given that they literally have given a card. I mean, Mulan's dad has 2 cards, which is, like, more than you would think Mulan's dad would need or have. He definitely has 1. I feel like he has 2. I feel like he has a red and a blue one. Irish ruby and sapphire. But yeah, I feel like I don't need any I kinda want the Emperor just because he didn't get but that's still Mulan 1. So, like, technically, no. I guess the answer is I really don't need
Well,
anything
I'll
from
take the sisters, like
Yeah,
the Emperor's daughters. They were, they
they're
were kind
fine.
of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, they were having a fun time. They were like, "We're all about duty," kind of. They said the word duty quite a lot.
My
And
first duty is to my heart. That's the
yeah.
line.
Yeah, they're like and then they're like yeah, they kept debating where the duty lays, and then that was fun, especially because it was all over the map, because Li Shang's like, "I thought you had a duty to your country." She's like, "No, I have a duty to my heart, which tells me to help my country." And I was like, "Well, Mulan, that's gonna be hard for people to follow. That's gonna be difficult to stay consistent with." So yeah, the sisters, they can have a card. But other than that, they didn't introduce any new characters other than the emperor of the other guy, the Unity Dragon. There's a lot of unity.
I'll take the
So,
dragon. Yeah.
yeah, why not? So, um, yeah, so I guess the big question is, do you think it was as good, better, or worse than the original?
I'm gonna have to say worse.
Yeah, I think that would be the right answer. And I think it's not, like you said, if this is a movie that 2 movies that existed. This is Mulan, and this is also Lanmu, and it's a completely different movie, and there's just some girls and trying to get enough to some stuff. I think it would be just a bad movie, but this was, like, especially egregious because it's always sad when you have characters and they take the things you love about them and they're like, "Mm-mm, not here. That's over. That's not a thing anymore." Um, and 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 that hurt. But it did make me wanna watch Mulan 1 again because
I
it
did
is
watch Mulan
okay.
again.
It was a palate cleanser.
It's so good. I love that movie so much. I literally cried for 10 minutes watching it. Like from the time they started playing Reflection for like 10 minutes, I was crying. I just think that movie is beautiful and so well done.
I remember just losing my mind when I saw because like, at this time in my life, I was very into anime, and so I was at the age where I could not separate in my brain, I'm like, "Well, this is like anime. It's not like anime. That's China. It's whatever. It's not similar at all," but I was just so hyped that it was a Disney movie that looked like it was cool, which was just something that hadn't really existed. I mean, there's good Disney movies, obviously, but this one looked cool. And, so yeah, like, it was like the upper echelon of Disney movies, and I remember, like, watching all the featurettes. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, the battle scenes. We had to make all these technology." And, yeah. And so, yeah, to go from that to this. A weird niche fact is I do remember being so obsessed. There's this song they play. Mulan decides she's going to steal her dad's armor, and there's this, like, montage, and this is before you could find songs. Songs had to be on CD or song did not exist, and I just remember being like, "Oh, I want that song on a CD so bad."
I know exactly what song you're talking about.
Yeah, because I just remember being like, "Man, if I could do some activities to that song, things would be good for me. I'd be really kicking butt." And it showed the Disney, anybody can cut their hair with one swipe, and it's a perfect cut.
Yes.
Rapunzel has also pulled off such cut. Oh, I guess Flynn did that. Or nope, Rapunzel cut her hair. Either way. Um, so, this the final step is putting it on the shelf. Now, the caveat is that the shelf is based on other prequels and sequels because I thought it'd be nutso they'd all be probably on the bottom shelf if we put it just, like, as movies. Um, the first one we did was Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Ocean, and that one I've been stressed about it for weeks because I watched it and I was like, "This is C, right? Like C." And Becky's like, "No, this is B." And I've been stressed since then because 'cause I'm like, What does that mean? What does it mean that's ahead of me?" Because this is 28 out of 29. Um, but I will let you go first, knowing what you know. How many of the Disney prequels and sequels have you seen? Would you like, I mean, just based on your heart and a non-scientific
I
measurement?
would guess I've seen about 10,
Okay. So knowing
but
that,
but most of them I don't remember.
see, and maybe, like, that's why I think there's something protective going on when you see a Disney sequel where your brain's like, "No, that's not part of this. That's something else." But in your heart is hard knowing that, I guess. Have you seen Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Ocean?
I'm pretty sure I have.
Well, that one was a B.
I don't
So
remember.
that's it's a lot to deal with because that movie had some problems. But this one, where would you put it?
What's the lowest?
So, the rating scale we have developed here at the end is it's S through F. There was an E, and I was like, what in the world would go between D and E? Or like, what would be E where it's not a D? So I got rid of E. So S tier is like the perfect A, B, C, D, and F. With Little Mermaid sitting alone on the B shelf.
This is really hard. I it's like half. What is in that? That is so low.
It feels bad start because, like, I mean, there could be worse than this, right? Because
Right.
we have, I mean, looking at my list, we have something here called, Tarzan and Jane. It's just a sequel where they live in the jungle together. That can't be good, or could be good. I don't know. Lady and the Tramp 2 is fun because Tramp's son is Scamp, and I think that's fun. Either way, neither
That
here nor
does
there. There's
sound
some weird
fun.
movies coming. Um, but yeah,
So
I'd be uh,
I might lean towards D, but I would probably put it in C to be safe. I
oh,
did read
wow.
an article saying where a critic said that this is one of the five worst. So maybe it is safe to put it low.
Yeah, I think D, because C, then people would see that and be like, "So this is like the and it could be the average, and that's the stakes I'm playing with here. But I just feel like if I said C, people would be like, "Oh, so it wasn't that bad?" And I'd be like, "No, it was really bad." Like, there's no redeeming qualities other than the animation wasn't bad. It was better than expected, and it was under an hour and a half, which I appreciated. Um so yeah, I think unfortunately Mulan 2, you're going on the D shelf. I don't know if I make the rules. I mean, technically I could have like a mid-season revival where there could be like a shuffling, but
Oh,
I
that's
think
smart. Yeah.
but I think yeah, I think like it's gonna be a D. So that's okay. I think we knew that. Mulan had big shoes to fill. Um and I also have you seen the live action Mulan?
I haven't actually. Have you?
You're Yeah, I have. It's hard. It's a hard one. They explain it's fine. It's like they take all the fun. They're like, "All the fun out. No more fun," which I think was an interesting choice. They're like, people don't want that. They just want serious. And then they also made Mulan slightly magical. They're like, she's really good because of the balance of the chi inside of her. So it made it less like she's scrappy and she's getting by and she has ingenuity to being like, no, she's a little magical. So, um, I don't know why I brought that up. Just to say, Mulan, just stop. I think everybody, hands up. We're done. No one touched their tests. I think we've done it. Mulan, we can't do better. I do feel like we're gonna live in a time where we're gonna see now remakes of the animation. Like, I just think Disney's gonna just be like, "Let's go around the block. Let's do it again." And then we can revisit. I mean, we've had 3 Spider-Men in the past 20 years. What else? We can expect anything. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's Mulan too. That's all there is to say about it. I mean, um, yeah, I think I'm like, well, and on a low note, but I do wanna say thank you, and chatting with, me and doing movie night at the end. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. This is the first time you've been on one of my shows. We were on the Illuminateers together once, and that was very exciting because I'm like, "She's real, I'm talking to her." And I think it's more powerful. Katie synergy is something that science hasn't studied, but they need to. Um,
Sure.
so next
Yeah.
time we can have 3.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm such a huge fan of you, and it was great to take a break from preparing from set champs and like watch a sequel and talk about it.
Yes.
So
I know, yeah, with my channel, I've been trying to do, like, fun, serious, because, it's sometimes it's fun to think, and it's fun. I like the armchair luminarying of being like, "Where's Lorcana going?" Because, I mean, in theory, anything's on the table, other than the things that aren't for legal reasons, but as far as, like, we've seen, Frozen 2, they're not afraid of it, so it could be a thing. So this is important scientific work we're doing.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so before we say goodbye, where can people find and follow you and your show?
Yes. You can find us Live Laugh Lorcana pretty much everywhere, but best place is on your favorite podcast platform and Instagram. We've been making reels and hanging out there.
Yeah, they are Becky and Katie are very funny, and I always feel like there's a scene in American Psycho where they're looking at business cards, and, like, sometimes you guys show your content, and I feel like I'm, like, shaky. I'm like, "It's so good." I don't know if you've seen that scene, but that's sometimes I feel because, like, you guys make these TikToks. I'm like, "That's very funny," and I'm always
Thank you.
very impressed.
I don't know that reference. I'm very culturally unaware.
It's okay. I think it's okay that people who listen to Disney Lorcana podcasts aren't, like, up to date with Christian Bale psychological thrillers, or dark comedy. It's tough to say which that movie is, but to my listeners, absolutely. If the Venn diagram, 100% of my listeners should have already been listening. But if you're not, if you're one of those rare people that aren't listening to Live Laugh Lorcana, you got to do it. They're great. They have like a female perspective and not filtered. I love it. You guys talk about what's on your mind in a way that I think is so important in the community because sometimes people are kind of like, oh, not that you guys like are like hot take city, but there's an honesty and a candidness that as a fellow female TCG player, it's so nice and so refreshing to have people in the community that, give their perspective and, do it in a funny way. It's funny and serious. It's important work.
Thank you so much. I
Ah,
I'm a huge fan of everything you do. So
well, thank you, cause yeah, it's fun. I every time you guys gas me up, I always wanna, like, big print it out and put it on my fridge and be like, "People noticed me." So, well, thank you again, and thank you to our listeners for joining me for another episode. As you know, there's always room for more people at the end, so if there's anything you want to hear me talk about, please feel free to email me at contact@thelorekeepersin.com or reach me at Twitter or Instagram in the socials linked in the description. As always, thank you for hanging out with me today. We're always happy to have you stop by the Lore Keepers Inn wherever your quest may take you. And remember, if you don't know where to find us, just take the second star to the right exit and head straight on till morning.